Today we're painting another Trench Crusade miniature. We are painting both versions, the stocking version and the standing version, thus the Lions of Jabir. As usual, we'll be painting with speed paints, a lot of speed paints, and of course, a little bit of Warpaints Fanatic. The painting was a very straightforward approach. We painted via our double slop chop method, but at the latter part of the painting process, I kinda changed my mind. Key to efficient painting is pre-selecting your colors, and I knew the colors that I wanted to use during the painting of this miniature. But again, at the latter part of the painting process, I changed my mind a little bit on the approach of how to finish the painting of these miniatures. Oh, also, do tell me at the comment section below what other Trench Crusade miniatures do you want me to paint next? Like I said earlier, these models were painted via our double slop chop method. However, during the second round of speed painting, I kinda changed my mind and went to a darker finish for the highlighting. I was going for a grimdark finish here, but as usual, especially if you're a long-time subscriber or viewer of the channel, I end up with Grim Pop. Well, Grim Pop is simply like grim dark, although with more vibrant colors and more highlights. It's not the muddy looking grim dark that we're used to, so I call it Grim Pop. Don't get me wrong, I love grim dark, although I feel that you have to highlight it more to make it pop on the table. So I always end up with Grim Pop. Hi, I'm Don, welcome to my channel. This channel is supported by all these awesome brands. Also, special thanks to the Army Painter for making this video possible. As usual, we start with dry brushing. I love starting painting with dry brushing. Even though I start sometimes with zenithal underpainting, I still dry brush with white. We'll be switching between my Foxbite dry brushes and my Army Painter Masterclass dry brushes. We are using Terrestrial Titan, which is my second fave color from the Warpaints Fanatic in terms of dry brushing over black primer. My first favorite color would be Blanchberry. Although Blanchberry is from the John Blanche collection, and I try not to use those paints as much as I can in my miniature painting these days because people don't have them yet. As you can see in the video, Terrestrial Titan looks like chromatic black. Chromatic black is simply a mixing of complementary colors to come up with a very dark color. It has more undertones and has richer look than usual black paint. Now I'm dry brushing with Thunderous Blue, which is from the Desaturated Blue-Gray strand. I'm just playing around with colors here because I get bored painting with the same colors over and over again. In fact, if you've been a follower of my channel, I also get bored painting the same method or the same way again and again. And to be honest, I miss painting with oil paints. If you are new to miniature painting though, I do not recommend switching different methods, different brands, especially different kinds of paints like oils or acrylics because you're still trying to learn how to paint efficiently and effectively. But of course, if you're an experienced painter already, you could play around with painting with different brands of acrylics and different types of paint and different methods that will make your painting more exciting every time. Now we are finished with the dry brush underpainting. Normally, if I'm going for a more refined look to this underpainting, I will do a quick pass of white glazes on the highlight areas or maybe even use an airbrush to highlight those top areas with white glaze paint. But as usual, this video is made for people who doesn't want to use their airbrush or does not have an airbrush. Now we paint the base colors with speed paints. We are using Brownish Decay. This color is beautiful, but for some reason I don't use this color as often as I should. This color is a strong yellow ochre color and it's so beautiful. I applied it without thinning the speed paint. Use a big brush and apply all over the base as fast as you can. Allow pulling especially on the shade areas to create more contrast to your painting or more depth. Now we're painting with Speedpaints Metallics Golden Armor. This gold paint has the best coverage in all of the gold paints that I have ever used. However, unlike regular speed paints, metallic speed paints do not produce good contrast, but the coverage is really good. The lack of contrast is not really a problem as long as you apply like a quick wash and then paint some highlights. That will give you more volume to your golden armor painting. Now we're painting with pastel lavender. The pastel speed paints are kind of weird. They're similar to the metallic speed paints in which they don't create contrast. In fact, they reduce the contrast of your underpainting. Pastel speed paints are similar, very similar to light colored glazes. And again, they will soften your contrast, but they will smoothen the finish of the skin of these miniatures. Although I find pastel speed paints a bit weird, they do have their uses. Now we're using Blood Moon Red from the John Blanche collection. This color is dark but vibrant at the same time. I think this is perfect as a wash. This color is better in my opinion than Slaughter Red though, because it gives you very nice contrast. Slaughter Red has too much coverage in my opinion, but you could fix that with Speed Paint Medium. Speaking of Speed Paint Medium, we thin down Green Black 1:1 with Speed Paint Medium. The thin down Green Black is now perfect to add contrast to our fur. Thin down Dark Wood will also work if you want a warmer fur. You can see in the video that I'm also applying the thin down Black Grim on the chainmail. Also notice that I did not paint the chainmail with speed paint silvers or silver speed paints because I want those crevices to be really black. And I'd rather do feathering with Warpaints Fanatics silvers over the chainmail. Also notice that I'm not blending the green black over the skin because I want a really good separation between the hair or fur and the skin parts. This makes my painting look cleaner. Separation in between different elements of a miniature is very important, especially for painting smaller miniatures. With this one, you don't really need that separation as much because these are fairly big miniatures. Keeping your painting clean as much as possible, especially if you're still learning how to paint miniatures, is important, even if you plan to do a lot of washes to make this look grim dark. Now, if you find value out of this video, do give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. Now we do the second round of Slop Chop. We are using Ivory White from the John Blanche collection, but of course you could use ordinary white paint. I'm focusing the dry brushing on the skin parts and a little bit on the fur, but I try not to dry brush the gold parts. This second round of dry brushing is fairly quick. It took me roughly around 5 minutes for each miniature. Now you could almost call this done. You could apply some washes on the skin, like purple tone wash on the skin, some red tone wash on the fur or the cloth, and of course dark tone wash on the fur and chainmail. And then of course some sepia wash on the groundwork to finish it off. No, to finish it off, then apply some blood effects paints or true blood and you're done. But since we're doing double slop chop, we're going to apply a second round of speed paints. Now we do our second round of speed paints. At the latter part of this method or process, I kinda changed my mind, like what I said in the intro. Now we are about to paint poppy red on the cloth parts because I want the cloth parts to be more vibrant, more saturated. The first round of speed paints gave more contrast to our painting. Of course, you could paint directly with poppy red or immediately with poppy red, but you won't get the same contrast. For people who are like watching a double slop chop method for the first time, double slop chop simply gives you more contrast and more color depth than single slop chop. Now we paint with Pallid Bone. I'm using the version 1 because I'm running really low with version 2. I love Pallid Bone so much and I'm using it too much. I need to email and ask for more Pallid Bone from Adam of Army Painter so that I won't need to use the version 1. Now I'm lazy to thin down Grim Black again, so we're simply using Gravelord Gray for the fur. Gravelord Gray is nice, it's generic gray color, but its coverage is kinda weak. And if you don't have a first round of slop chop, it won't really work the same way as you see in the video. Now we're using burnt moss. Now this is where I changed my mind. I wanted a darker base color for everything so that my highlighting later will be more prominent. So if you don't plan to paint a lot of highlights on the gold parts, the gold armor parts, thin down burnt moss with speed paint medium. Or you could simply use washes like military green tone wash and dark blue tone washes for the armor parts. Or you may use dark skin tone or even warm skin tone washes if you want a warmer gold armor. Now we bring back more contrast to the skin. If you don't plan to paint a lot of highlights, thin down the speed paint a little bit more with speed paint medium. But you can see in the video, I'm going for a darker skin so that my highlights will be more prominent later. After applying all these speed paint washes, you may finish up the painting of the miniature with true blood effects. But as usual for us, I'm going to paint a bit more highlights to refine the painting of these miniatures. Speed paints dry to a very matte finish, so you don't really need a matte varnish before you paint the highlights. However, if you paint with more washes, the washes tend to be to have a satin finish, especially if you apply too much. So if you use a lot of Warpaints Fanatic washes, you may want to apply a quick coat of matte varnish before painting the highlights. Now you can see in the video, simply by applying true blood effects, you could call this miniature done, especially if you're into grim dark painting. But like I said earlier, I wanted to paint more highlights, thus I made the base colors darker after our double slop chop. Now, I get inquiries on how to choose what colors, what Warpaints Fanatic to use over speed paints. You simply use the last two bright colors of the triad system and that will always work over speed paints over base colors. The main reason why I wanted to paint more highlights is because the blood effects, the true blood effects, renders really well over bright surfaces. So I wanted brighter highlights on the top areas of these miniatures and then paint the blood effects. That will give me really bright blood effects that will really pop on the table once we play with these miniatures. It's important to note that I'm not glazing here. This is like quick stippling of the highlights and painting over the top areas and raised areas of the skin. So it's a matter of just stippling using a nice fine pointed brush, and I'm using Kolinsky brush, but again, there is no glazing in the painting of the skin. No glazing means our skin is rougher than usual, but again, we're going to apply some blood effects, so that's fine. Now, the main problem with the design of this miniature is that the red cloth is at the back of the miniature. It's dominant at the back and it's the accent color. So we don't have a vibrant accent color at the front. No accent color at the front meant that I had to apply a bit more colors on the skin. As you can see, the skin has some blue tones and some dark purple tones to add more color depth to our painting. If you're a long-time viewer or a subscriber of this channel, you know that I love painting non-metallic metal. But with this one, since we're painting an army, I don't want to paint non-metallic metal on all these miniatures. So it's simply stippling highlight colors or highlight gold paints on the armor to give it more volume and contrast. If you don't mind using liquid mask, you may apply liquid mask on the skin parts and apply highlights of the gold armor via dry brushing. Although, of course, stippling gives you more control. Now, before my final thoughts, a huge thanks to all my patrons at Patreon, Hajime Model Studio, and of course, the Army Painter for making this video possible. Now, to finish off the painting of this miniature, and of course we need highlight or accent colors, we use a lot of true blood effects. Blood effects in general are translucent paints, and they render really well over bright surfaces, as you can see in the video. You may thin down the blood effects, especially if you want it as a wash, or if you want to add flow to the blood effects. Apply the blood effects in varying degrees of opacity or thinning so that you create more interest to your painting. You may also apply more glazes or glaze painting to the skin to make it smoother if you plan to spend more time in the painting of these miniatures. But for me, I need to move on and paint other Trench Crusade miniatures. I enjoyed painting the standing version a lot more because it has a lot more skin. Although, looking at the stocking version, it also looks fairly good. I'm digging Trench Crusade a lot, pun intended, and I love all the official miniatures because I really love the lore. And since I love the lore, up to this point I'm very undecided on what warband to finish. So help me at the comment section below. Do tell me what Trench Crusade miniature do you want me to paint next or what warband should I finish. It's important, very important to note that this painting via our double slop chop plus is a little bit different than our older double slop chop painting method. The main difference with our older double slop chop painting is that with this one, I went with a darker finish after the second round of slop chop because I wanted to highlight more. But like I said earlier, you may simply thin down your speed paint washes or simply use washes in the second round of slop chop so that you don't need to highlight more and spend more time in the painting of these miniatures. As usual, although I'm going for a grimdark finish, we even use some paints from the John Blanche Grimdark collection. I ended up with Grim Pop. For people new to this channel, you may want to watch my playlist of double slop chop or speed paint plus painting so that you have a better understanding of the double slop chop method and what it gives to your miniature with a small amount of time. Obviously, I'm biased, but I think that double slop chop plus, even without the plus, which is the highlighting, is way better than single slop chop. Now, what I really like about Trench Crusade is the potential to play this game with my kids. Similar to Creature Caster's Eternal Champions, this game is a small skirmish game. Based on my research, I think you could play with Trench Crusade with just 8 to 12 miniatures. This means that I could actually paint 4 factions and play with my kids. And we will have different factions for each of the players. And it will be super fun. And since you're only painting a small amount of miniatures, you could paint these miniatures at a higher quality painting. This simply means you don't have to rush the painting, you don't have to do single slop chop, and of course I'm biased, our double slop chop method is perfect. Now people are asking me if you could use oil washes, especially at the second round of the slop chop. Of course you can, and I do have a lot of older videos using oil paints. That's it, Pansit. I hope you like this video. Do like, comment, subscribe, and all that stuff. Until next video, guys. Bye!